Well, hello, and welcome back. I'm AJ O'Neill, and I have the sinking feeling that I am forgetting something, but of course I don't remember what it is. With that said, we're gonna do a Q&A. We're gonna start with a Q&A. I think maybe as I get Q&A that comes up that is post video, I'll start bringing those up now, and then we're gonna go into the back to the database side of things. So I had the Postgres logo up this time, and on the preview screen. Anyway, so 2 bits of Q&A. I'm actually going to start with this other one because it's smart. Now Ryan is cursed. He must be doing some wrong things. He probably has bad beliefs. He's probably a bad person because YouTube knows better about who to censor and why. He's got deep algorithmic understanding. And for some reason, I cannot approve his comments hard enough. When he leaves a comment, it just gets erased. He's a dangerous thinker, a wrong thinker. I think that's what we're seeing here. Now, David, on the other hand, I don't even have to approve his comments. They go straight through. He's commented a couple of times. We'll start here. So the first cue that I have for all of you is, why is Ryan so dangerous and David not so dangerous? The next one is, as someone with little to no experience, especially Node, is the convention where you capitalize the first letter standard on import. So what he's talking about is the other day. Let's get that out of the way. What? Are we even in the right place? What the who? Okay, this is the right one. All right. So what he's talking about is the other day. I don't know if it was this one or something else I brought up. Is this the node side? Yeah, this is not the node side. We need to go to the node side. Let's go to the node side. Okay. So let's see if I'm doing it here. I'm kind of sort of doing it. So for example, I have key fetch with a capital K. And I think in the video I was doing, I had most things starting with a capital letter. And some of the other things that don't have with a capital letter, and I kind of want to explain why that is, like what's that code style about. So first of all, JavaScript is the wild, wild west. Nobody can agree on anything. Everybody does everything 100 different ways. Instead of saying, this is stupid, let's reach some consensus because there ought to be a standard way to do things, people just say, oh no, it's whatever you feel in your heart, which we'll get into that when I rip apart Ryan's comment. Well, one of them. The other ones, I appreciate all the comments, but anyway. So here's the thing. If it is a package, then I generally capitalize the first letter. If it's in the standard library, sometimes I don't, just because there's this convention of not capitalizing the first letter of the things in the standard library. But here's the problem. If it is, for example, path, I always, and I've started doing this with other things too now, just because I want to be consistent. So path is a package, and it is quite likely that I want to have a variable named path as well, and I don't want those to come in conflict. So let path equal, with capital P, and then I can use the lowercase p for myself elsewhere. So that's kind of why I do it. Request is not a package as much as it is just a function. And so this is more of a single variable is exported than a whole package is exported. And then app, just historically, first of all, it's an instance. So it is a variable. It's not the package. We're not getting out, say, the router. If we were to do this, for example, we would be getting out the router, and it makes sense to have it uppercase because if it's a package or a class, to me that makes sense. It's a collection of stuff that doesn't have state associated with it. That's what I would consider to be a package or a class. If it's a collection of stuff that doesn't have state associated with it, that's pretty much how I'd go. But if it's an instance, meaning that it does have state associated with it, and you could have more than one of them. So for example, I could have an app1 and I could also have an app2. That's where I use lowercase, where it's actually a variable. And you'll notice I never use const, and the reason for that, of course, is that I reserve const for constants. I don't declare variables as constants because they're variables, and that's confusing. That's not logical. And then, there's some cases where I'm not consistent more for historical reasons than anything else. But yeah, I suggest using, if it's a package or a class or a stateless structure, I would suggest putting a capital letter on there, because that is common convention across all programming languages except for Go, because Go does lowercase package names because it does uppercase or title case export names. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But most languages are this way. I don't remember if Rust is this way or not. Rust might, I think Rust is snake case, so I think it is always lowercase, and I respect that. But if you're going to use title case or camel case, you should use title case for package names. I think that's relatively defensible, but again, JavaScript's hard because there's so many people and everybody's fighting and bickering with each other, and the 3 or 7 different standard bodies that exist all standardize things differently. Case in point, if you remember the old HTML HTTP request, there's only one word for this, and it's the F word. That's the only word for this. You don't mix. That is a cardinal sin. That is just was there any review on that? Did no one made a comment on that? Anyway, moving on. So that's that one. Next bit of Q&A here. So, I didn't actually see this comment at first. So the not selector. But can we select things that do not... I do know about the not selector. I'd forgotten about it while I was doing the video. Otherwise, I might have tried this. So can we do... We can do not attributes. Okay, this is a bit... It's exact. But this is almost as bad as defining a regular expression as the definition. I forget what this is called. B, C, and F, B and L, it's B something. There's B's and an F or a C or an N or an L or something like that in there. Anyway, this is a notation, so it's BN, because B is in there. B is the dude's name, N is notation. But this is a specific notation in the same way that JSON is a notation to describe I don't even know what to call it, a grammar. It's describing a grammar for essentially a language or part of a language. So let's see. It looks like this would probably work. I will have to check that out and see if that works for what I wanted. The box sizing, yes. This is the crazy thing is, no, I asked several people who are CSS experts, and it might be that this is just so that everybody knows this, that when I described my problem, they just assumed that I had already tried using border box. The problem I was having is that if you put a div inside of a div and you set both divs to 100%, the inner div will surpass unity, meaning that it will be wider than 100% wide. And the reason for this is a bug in the CSS specification, and the fix is to set box sizing to border box, in which case things that are nested inside of each other will only take up 100% of the space they're nested inside of, rather than taking up 100% of an imaginary space that I don't know what it's calculated on. Let's see. Makes more sense to put I guess that wasn't really Q&A, that's just comments I'm going through. Makes more sense to me to put the thing being tested. This is the one right here. Makes more sense to me. No, it does not make more sense to you. It is more intuitive to you. And there's an important distinguishment between something making sense and being intuitive. It's intuitive that the sun revolves around the earth, but that does not make sense. So this is, I believe it is a very defensible position to say that the things are constant-ish should go on the left side, and the things that are variable-ish should go on the right side. One, because if it's actually a constant, it'll throw an error if you make the accident of doing a single equals rather than a double equals or a triple equals. Also, having the mindset of being logical, logic is not intuitive. If it were, then the last two elections would have gone a completely different way, wouldn't they have? Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't have had either of the clowns. No, we wouldn't have. So logic is not intuitive. And I hope that I equally offended everyone with that comment. I think I encompassed 100% of voters, except for the reasonable people. Well, then again, if the math on that doesn't work out, so never mind. But we would surpass unity there too. But and no, I'm not talking about that thing. I'm talking about the other thing that you probably don't know that I'm talking about because nobody remembers. But I won't go into it. Anyway, so the checksum. The checksum is not what I expect. This is sentence structure, but logic structure. We focus on the thing that allows us to exit, the thing that we can rely on, or potentially the inverse, the thing that is the most changeable, whatever it is that's going to allow us to arrive at a principle of certainty. And in this case, expected is certain. And the way that we're going to get out of we're going to get out of the condition the quickest, kind of not Occam's razor, but I don't know what to call it, is certainly doing the not check. We don't want to check if it is what is expected. We want to check that it is not what is expected. So this is the first big thing here is just that we agree we should be checking the inverse condition first because that allows us to exit out of the program sooner and have less cyclomatic complexity in the code. Fewer conditions, less cyclomatic complexity. I've talked about this before. It's probably hard to explain it from just this comment talking about code rather than seeing the actual code. But yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's... If you have a language such as Go, now let's say that every language was like Go, then I would agree with this. Then I would agree with this wholeheartedly. The checksum is not what I expected. Because Go does not allow you to make the mistake of having an assignment within a condition. It is not allowed in the language. It is not a valid expression to do an assignment as part of an if or a while. Do they have? No, there's just for. It's not. You can do an assignment as part of a for, but only if it's the assignment part of the for, because the for has three parts. I forget the name of it, but there's the initializer, the test, and the thing that gets done after. There's actually a cool name for it. By the way, I forgot to open up the comments. Let me go ahead and check and see what we've got here so far. Okay. No comments so far, but welcome to those of you joining in. Thanks for joining in on the stream, and tell me where you're from and what you're doing, and I love to have a little bit of conversation and all that. So yeah. From Twitch. Hello, Larissa. Nice to have you with us. Tell me, who you are, where you're from, what do you do, what's your interest in Node? Oh, you're from Brazil. Awesome. I would say hello in Portuguese, but I actually don't know how to do that. And my fake Portuguese accent would probably only offend you. But I am an equal opportunity offender. So the next bit here, how about derived keys? So I was asking there was a couple of functions I was asking what should we call them? And I think that Ryan's thoughts were actually really good here. Derived keys sounds a little bit too technical from the perspective of what I wanted the passphrase library to be and to do. But I also agree that perhaps validate would have been a better function name than checksum, although checksum is a verb. Checksum is a noun or a verb. Validate checksum is more verby. I 100% agree with we want function names and method names to be verby. Thank you. And then did you mean, yeah, so there was a little confusion. I was counting 12 words representing 16 bytes. I got confused between the two of them. And that was that, and some of that I put in here as well. I'm not going to go over any of the GameCube comments. Let's see if there are other programming comments that I hadn't got through. No, I don't think so. Anyway, so there we are. There's a little bit of Q&A. Well, not really Q&A as much as just comment review. I guess there was some Q&A. But anyway, so there's that. And I'll have to put not in my back pocket to remember. Oi? Or hola? Well, My English is very good and your Portuguese is very good, so we're both very good at something. Also, wait, I had another question. So I talk fast. I'm assuming that you can listen fast, even though perhaps you don't speak fast or type fast. And if you want to use Google Translate, if you want to say something you want to use Google Translate, I'll catch it in. Oi! Oh yeah, and Sean's back. Nice to see you, Sean. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to get on to the meat of the episode, which is, let me just go ahead and give this a refresh and see if this even works at all anymore. So we're going to be on post. We can be in settings here. Here's my passphrase. So the only setting we have so far is passphrase. I'm going to put in the blogs themselves are going to go onto the settings page, but I'm probably going to delay that because first of all, I'm probably the only person using this. If you do want to use it, it's bliss.js.org. The idea of it is to be blogging as easy as Gist, and you can use GitHub Pages to host the blog. So if you're a code newbie, this is a really good place to start. It really, really is. I would highly recommend it. I built it for code newbies, but I also built it for me because it scratches one of my own itches, and I need to be able to sync these things between computers. Hence the passphrase. So we've got our post page and we've got our settings page, and this is all being done in vanilla.js. I may at some point in the future have to upgrade it to a framework because you either end up building a framework or using a framework, and the argument for using a framework is that you don't have to write the documentation. I happen to like writing documentation. I think that's an enjoyable, good thing to do, so I'm not too worried about building my own framework if it comes to it. And I'd like to try my hand at something that is in the vein of Alpine.js/Vue. I'm not wanting to try something that's in the vein of React because I don't like transpiling. And I think that we should stick to the benefits of JavaScript rather than trying to paint over all of its warts with other things. Really, we should just cut off the warts. I used to have a wart right here. Yeah, right there. I had it cut off twice, I think 2 years apart, maybe 3 years apart. Once while I was in Albania. They have free healthcare there. You go into the doctor's office, and while they're smoking, they ask you the questions. It's kind of scary. Yeah, but they put liquid nitrogen on my wart and cut it off, and it only took a couple minutes, and it was free. So I guess that was cool. But it was kind of weird to have a doctor just smoking away, and it was not a clean office by any means. It was very dirty. But Albania is a lot different now, though. Albania used to be way different than what it is. I was there when they were putting in the first interstate. Anyway, side story. Totally not applicable to this. So let's get to the code. And I am a little bit, well, not a little bit. I am diagnosed ADHD. So now I can play in the victimhood Olympics, and I've got at least one thing going for me. But that's I do get off track. I've come to recognize because my brain actually does function differently. Although I don't consider it a disability any more than I would consider being left-handed as a disability. And I kind of get offended when people talk about it as though it's a disability, because you wouldn't talk about being left-handed as a disability, or being able to see colors more clearly as a disability, or there's just, your brain is optimized for different things than what other people's brains are optimized for. Okay, so this is this is called post dummy. I should probably change this at this point to posts. So let me go ahead and do that. Do I want to call it post or posts? This is one of those questions that I always waffle on. I think I want to call it singular, because every time I call it plural, it seems like I end up regretting it, because the collection post.create, post.save, post.function that does the thing. The way that I do collections, I treat the object itself as JSON, and I put all of the modifiers on the package, as you will. And so I would call the package post. So I think the API route should be post, but I think I'm not well versed enough on it to say that I think that the singular case is really, really defensible. But we're going to go with that for right now. And Yes, going off track does keep things interesting. I don't know about Vite. View without the transpiling? That sounds great. I'll have to check it out. Let's keep things interesting real quick. Oh, the Energizer Bunny. What is he doing here? Vite. It's too cool. Brave doesn't know about it yet. Vite.js. Out-of-the-box support for TypeScript. It can't be transpile free if it's got out-of-the-box. Well, I guess what we could say is that it doesn't require transpiling, but if you are using TypeScript, it has TypeScript type hinting built in. Let's see. Guide. Faster and leaner development experience. That sounds great. Hot module replacement. Meh. Bundles your code with rollup. Opinionated, sensible defaults. Yay. I don't know. It's kind of funny with the bundler bit because we've come full circle. We wanted to get HTTP2 because we had this problem of needing all these script tags. And HTTP2 worked better with the way we used to do things, but it also wasn't as promised. HTTP2 allows the web server, if it's a smart web server, allows it to heuristically serve the proper content to a browser before it's requested, and to keep multiple pipelines, bidirectional pipelines open. So rather than the traditional request then response cycle, it can be a request, response, 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 request, response, response. It's more akin to WebSockets, but at the web server level, dealing with files and things that could be, like I said, you could use, dare I say, machine learning. Let's put that in better terminology, glorified spreadsheet. You could take a glorified spreadsheet and see what the access of files are, and then by counting up the tallies and sorting the spreadsheet, that would be the heuristic by which you could say, oh, when a browser makes a request to page X, I have a 99% probability that they're going to request the JavaScript for that and the CSS for that, etc. But then web servers could also just read the HTML and get that information too. So again, there's a lot of things that we could have done with the existing technologies that we didn't do. Okay, so I need to have a post. I need to have a patch as well, I think. I'm not really clear on how I want to handle this. Do I want it to be a post, a patch, a put? Oftentimes I want to not rewrite things, but in this particular case, meaning that you just add more and more and more and more, you do a log-based database rather than an update-based database. But in this particular case, I kind of want to say it's up to the clients to handle versioning, and this is going to let you overwrite a key as many times as you want, which if you do, the best way that you could do it would be an event stream, but I don't think an event stream would be appropriate for this because this is essentially binary files. This is a document database, more or less, than it is a columnar database, per se. Oh, hello. Wow, lots of people joining in. Hello to all of you. Feel free to tell me where you're from and what you're up to, what your interest is in Node or Postgres or this project. We've got Larissa from Brazil and Sean from Australia. Did I get that right? I hope yeah. And then we got some lurkers. I bet Tom's on here. Hi, Tom. Tom never makes a comment, but I'm going to say hi to Tom. Let's see. All right, so we're going to do this as maybe a put, maybe a patch. I'm not really sure. Let's go with, I never use put. Let's use put just for flair today. And what else am I doing in this? There's a couple of things in here that I'm going to change while I'm in here. So I found this to be a really, really great way to go about things, what I'm about to show you. But I need to see if we're doing a prefix with API here first. So let me go into the server, which I don't do much in the server. Yes. So this is prefixed with API. And from API, we're going straight into that app. Okay, that's good. So this is being mounted. That's the true express server, and this is async router, which is probably linked to in the doobly-doo. I have some good links in there if you want to just check them out. But what I found to be a good strategy that I'm liking more and more is to have a hello, potentially just a hello endpoint. Prefix these things with public if they are not, if they don't require authentication. So the ENVs, I don't put out the private ENVs, but just those kind of things that you want to know. Hey, wait, did we set the Google client ID right on this one? Or those things that are public identifiers that you could get from looking at the source code, or just options. Is real email sending turned on for the dev environment, or is it turned off? Those kind of environment variables. I like to put those in public ENVs because they don't expose any information that could get you hacked, or at least they shouldn't. But they can serve as a quick debug reference to say, am I looking at the server that I think I'm looking at? Sanity check, you know? So, and I actually am going to change that to no DNV. Anyway, I'm going to change a couple of things about this. But this one, what it should be is we can do require package.json and then put out version here. So that'll be the API version. And then for versions, we have node. And the two things that you definitely should include versions on that you wouldn't necessarily think of are ICU, which is the International Character something, something, something. It has localization data in it. And then TZ. TZ because, believe it or not, if you have a service running for a couple of years and the time zones get out of date, then you're going to have time zone problems. And you want to make sure that you are updating node and redeploying occasionally, probably every 6 months or so that you get the security updates, but also so that you get localization and time zone database, because legislature happens, and that is not logical nor intuitive. But legislature happens, and then time zones change, formatting of currency or dates can change. This stuff really happens. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. And I've got my require user function, and I've got my post for the /post. Actually, I don't want it to be a post. I want it to be, what do I want to call this? Doc? I think I'm just going to call it doc, because it's intended to be a post, but really it's just an arbitrary document at the level that we're using it. That's what it is. So let's go ahead, and we don't have an update item. We should, but we don't. But I'm going to go ahead and say, this is kind of weird. I should probably do user.items.update or have an items. I don't know. I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to change this user.createItem to user.items.create. And eventually we'd refactor this out into an items.create, but for right now, I'm just going to leave it as is. Let's see. And feel free to comment again, with any questions, whatever, as we go. Okay. So I actually, yeah, we'll do the created at should stay the same. UUID should stay the same. Updated. But we're going to need to do, if we're going to update, we're going to need to pass in the document ID. So let's go ahead and put that in here. I think that's a reasonable way to go about this. And this is to get all of them, yeah? And this is to create a new one. Really, they should go in the other order. Create should be first. If we're going to do this CRUD-like. And then, oh yeah, the other thing I was going to say is prefix these with user. Because then what I can do, you see I've got require user, require user, require user. So I can get rid of that and have fewer points of possible failure in the security of my app by doing app.use and then putting in user and then putting in require user. And now this gets simpler and all of the routes that are scoped this way are protected. So I've got only one thing to worry about, and fewer things to worry about is generally a better way to go about it. Okay. So yeah, I was going to say, let's call this creates. Let's call this list. I like CLUD. And we'll call this, what was this one's update. And then update and delete would really be the same thing. The difference because here's the thing, when you're dealing with a small SQL database, you're not thinking about the real world. It's almost a toy problem at that point. And that works okay, but if you're working for a company where there's more than 10 users, then if there's 10 users, you're already at the point where you should be thinking, wow, this is really successful. This could grow. So when you have a change that needs to propagate across a network, it's not possible to propagate a delete. Well, it is with an event log. If you have an event log, you can propagate a delete through a cluster. And event logs are good. And if you want to learn about event logs, you should check out Ethan Garofalo. See, he's my friend. I actually know him in real life. We have real conversations. I have no idea how to say his last name. He is the event. What's the right word? Microservice event-driven architecture. He is the event-driven architecture dude, and he talks about microservices. And I love one of his quotes. He says, "I'm going to send this out to everybody. This is Ethan Garofalo. Did I spelled his name wrong when I typed it out. It's a hard name for me. Sorry. I'm going to call him the event-driven. What did we call him? Event-driven architecture dude. That's who he is. So there you go. Take a look at him there. But he has a quote, and I actually lost it. I had it a second ago, but it's something to the effect of, if you build smaller. The way that most people do microservices isn't microservices, it's just building smaller monoliths. And if you use this event pattern, then things can be great. So anyway, let's get back over here. So to wrap this up, if you want to delete something, set it to null. That keeps a record that it was deleted, or preferably set deleted at to something. But then, and this is good, but everywhere in your code, then you need to make sure that the thing hasn't been deleted or revoked. Now, I like to do that. In some situations, it can be more complex if there's supposed to be a single ID for a thing, and if a person wants to go add it later, that would mean that you'd have to undelete it. But what I like to try to do is keep it so that typically you have multiple. You can have multiple versions of a thing. For this service, because I really don't want to store people's data, and it's going to be encrypted, and I wouldn't have any way to efficiently store versions, I'm just going to say, you can overwrite the previous ID, and this is acceptable. But if you delete it, the ID stays there forever, and it just gets a null instead, and that's going to be fine. Anyway, much ado about something, because it's not quite nothing. So we're going to need to take the rec.params.uuid is going to have to go in here, rec.params.uuid, and then whatever it is that we want to replace this with. But really it's going to be a patch of some sort. So I'm not going to use put, I'm going to use patch, because it is going to be a patch of sorts. And I think there are some columns that I want to add to this, particularly what I'm thinking, especially just on create, I think we want to have, I forget what the standard name is for this. I think it would be alg, and then ops. So let's say this is AES CBC to, let's say 128. I think that would be an appropriate name for an algorithm. And then ops might be, I don't know what the options are for that off the top of my head, but there are some options. I guess options are CBC and 128 are options. So we could say that, again, there's a name for this. It's not called key size, but let's say it were called key size. Maybe that would be 128. But something of this nature, I think, should be saved with the data, because I think that the client may want to store it in different ways, and we do need some metadata to be able to understand how it was encrypted. There also could be a different key. I think that's one of the reasons for having the server-side UUID, which is different from the client-side UUID for the document, different, because the client has its own UUID that actually ends up being encrypted. But for the server portion, the UUID could actually be used with the passphrase library as part of the creation of the key, deriving the key. So I'm going to go to passphrase.js real quick. I'm just going to post this in the chat because this is what we were talking about before. So passphrase.js. This was the last two sessions. So for those of you that are interested in checking that out, it's just generating, the use case I have is generating 12 words that function as an encryption key seed, meaning that multiple encryption keys could be generated from that. The way that it's used in Bitcoin, which this has nothing to do with, I just put the little Doge on there because of this, that just my goofy reference to the BIP 39, because Doge uses that as well. But the use case they have is for creating wallets, and then you have multiple seeds, so it's seeds of seeds, and that's not quite what I want to do. And then, yeah, I still kind of to do insertedat. I don't know. If you're going to sync databases across each other, generically speaking, you need an insertedat property to keep track of knowing if a user connects to this database and wants to sync from it, has it grabbed, if there's anything that has been inserted at later than the updated at date, even though the thing that is inserted may be older, it should still be retrieved, because I'm in the thick of it here. This may not be a great for learners episode. Let's see. So we're doing the patch and we've got the UUID. So I just need to go create that function. Also, I'm going to put these things in publicly, I think. Or any of these get config. Yeah, all of this stuff can go in public. I'm going to go move this up, actually. All that stuff deserves to be in the public realm. This is all debug stuff. So let's go ahead and I'm going to move all these down. As OIDC, debugging, etc. Whatever it is. And then we've got our errors. This is all public too. If you just want to get a test error, this is how I'm starting to build up my boilerplate. I think I'm going to change my boilerplate to fastify as well. The reason I use Express is because, well, I'm familiar with it and everybody uses it, but it's really not the best tool. As my complaint is with many things, what's most popular is often more or less the worst of the bunch. And Express is a dead project. It ought to be deprecated because it's not being maintained in the sense of, well, all the documentation is 5 years out of date, talking about a version 5 that was supposed to come a month later, and then I guess the core person ended up moving on to something else. So it's never been finished, and the documentation is halfway between version 4 and version 5, etc. So I think fastify might be a better solution. I just haven't dabbled with it yet because I wasn't sure about the compatibility. But next month at Utah.js, we have somebody giving a talk on fastify. So I'm going to learn about it, and then at that point I may decide to use it. And if everything goes well, it's just going to be a drop-in replacement anyway, so it's not going to be a lot that I have to learn new. It should just be much like async router. Here's the 2 lines you change, bada bing, bada boom, and you're good to go. Hello and welcome. I see you just joined the channel. Feel free to ask questions, make chat. I'll go off on tangents. I'm working on a personal project right now, so I'm going on as many tangents as we want. But I would like to know who you are, where you're from. I'm AJ. Hi. If you want to say hi, that'd be awesome. Tell me what your interest is in Node or the stream or whatever. Anyway, so now I've got my patch in place on the route side. And by the way, I like to keep my routes really, really thin. You may have noticed this already. But the route, the only purpose of the route should be to pull in the controller, the business logic. The route should just handle the serializing and deserializing. That's the purpose of the route. So routes should be really tiny, and then I kind of mesh the model and the controller together a lot of the time. As it gets bigger, then I pull them out. But I'm pretty strong on the route is the view layer. It should be tiny, especially because its only job is to take between, go back and forth between JSON and JSON and whatever's in the database or whatever operation needs to be fulfilled. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here now, and I'm going to go into, lib user. So this is the model and the controller put together because there's not enough here yet to really separate those two out. If there gets to be enough, then I will separate them out, but as of right now, I don't think that there's a good reason to do that. What do I have? Create item. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to do items. And again, this should be its own model controller thing, but for right now. And I guess should it be user.items? Is that appropriate? Can we? That's an interesting question because user is singular, but items is plural. But I don't know. But if I was, I would call this item if I made it into its own thing. But for right now, like I said, it's just simpler for me as I'm prototyping this out and figuring out where all the bits and pieces are, to just put it like that. So do I call it? Really, it should be either called patch or set or merge. Sometimes people like to call merge. I think I'm going to call it merge. And then we're going to have the item ID and the item. And we're not going to need to create an item ID, and we're not going to do an insert. We may do an update. But what we're going to do is select, and I guess, what do we want to select from this? I don't know that we really want to select anything from this. We want to make sure that the user has access to it. That's what we want to make sure of. So we want really probably just to select, I guess anything is good enough. We can update it, create it. Did I put the deleted at on here? I don't remember. Oh, hey, welcome. Same applies to you. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? What's your interest in Node or Postgres or whatever? So I'm using connects, which some people call nex, but I call connects because then you know how to spell it. Connects, kind of, maybe, sort of. And wasn't the Lego system called Connects? I think it was. The Lego competitor. It wasn't really a competitor to Legos. It was a little bit more advanced. It's like Duplo blocks, Legos, Connects, right? But Connects is just for SQL. And the reason that I use it is that if you try to embed SQL in JavaScript, it's easier to read and write the SQL, but it's more difficult to prove its correctness with any sort of linting or code tooling. And so I'm a little bit on the fence about it because you could just have all your SQL commands in files, and then you could have some tests that are based around SQL for them, and then you could read those queries in, and you could go about it that way. I think that putting the queries in the code, if there was some sort of, and this is where we need tooling. There's so many stupid things we have tooling on, but things that are actually challenging to do and really valuable, we don't have tooling for. And I guess I'm to blame because I haven't created it either. But we should have something that you could make a certain type of comment, say, like this, for example. And some JavaScript tool could go look, much like we have with Markdown. You have Markdown tags. So you should be able to do some sort of tag as the beginning of the file, which is whatever the file's comment structure is. You have that at the beginning and then tell it what it is. So maybe it's MySQL or maybe it's PostgreSQL or whatever. And then have some tool that plugs into a linter that would then validate those. And if we had that, then I would be 100% on board, I think. I think I'd be 100% on board with just writing raw SQL in the code because it's easier to read and write. And most of the time, there's no benefit to ORMs because you're not going to switch databases. If it's an open source project, then yeah, you want people to be able to connect to 10 databases. But if it's a business project, you're not going to port this over to 10 different databases. You use Postgres and you're done, right? And when you get to expand, then you migrate to Cockroach or whatever it is. And then most of the databases that are the scaling databases use the Postgres adapters, as I understand. I think Amazon's got their scalable database is a Postgres adapter. Cockroach is a Postgres adapter. Postgres seems to be the standard interface for real databases. And Postgres itself does have clustering and all that nowadays. Anyway, I'm going to select this and we're going to do from. And I guess I have got this permission structure here. Let's see. I should just delete this whole thing because that's what I've got there is just confusing because I just copied and pasted, but I'm not actually going to reuse any of that. So we're going to grab the UUID. It probably needs to be, is it items? Oh, see, this is what I did. In the database, I used the plural, and I probably should use the singular. Anyway, from items dot, and I think we want to join here. Join, whoops, not times. I do this all the time, mix up items and times. That I've been doing that for years. And we want to join this on, what was it? Items, projects. And the reason, I did this a little bit convoluted in retrospect, I can admit, but we'll see how it pans out because I want to build out this structure in a way that you can share items with projects and then you can share projects with people so that you could get collaboration on this. And so to cheat, which is maybe a bad thing, we'll find out. I don't have a defensible position for this. You'll hear me say defensible a lot because I believe that the choices you make in your code should be defensible. And the defense shouldn't be, it can be I'm prototyping, but it shouldn't be I'm lazy. That's not a defensible position. But I think I'm prototyping makes sense. Anyway, so I am prototyping this. I'm exploring this. I've looked at multiple ways of doing these types of permission systems and considered how GitHub does it and how Google Drive does it. And you can kind of infer from the behavior the way that it works. So for example, in Google Drive, you can infer that there are duplicate permission records by the way that it works when you add and remove people to items. And if somebody is joined into a shared group versus removed from the shared group, you can kind of get a sense from working in Google Drive that the permissions table is duplicated and probably has some sort of calculation process that happens every so often, such as when somebody is added or removed, that the permissions are probably recalculated down the chain. And I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of what I'm trying to emulate here is the full structure of a person is linked to a project is linked to, or a person is linked to a team is linked to a project is linked to an item. That full structure is going to be joined every time so that I only have one structure. I don't have a team structure and a person structure to be individual. Every person belongs to their own team. Every project belongs to a team. and the team has its own project as its default project, and every item belongs to a project. So in the case that I'm working with right now, what I did to cheat was I put the user ID is the team ID and the project ID. So all of those things are aligned such that in the current case that I have, I can take the shortcut of querying the user ID directly in the projects table and not have the overhead of doing the join. Now, this is a little less intuitive, so it might be a bad approach. I don't think it's too difficult to explain if you're familiar with databases and tables and you understand there's about 3 different ways you can reasonably do this. So if you understand those things, then I think this isn't so bad, but it is a little bit more difficult to explain than having separate relationships and a person has an individual relationship with a project, not always having a relationship through a team, and that a team has a relationship with a project and so on and so forth. But I like the idea of it being one consistent mode of access. And if we were to look at the database, then maybe it'd be easier to explain that. But if you've been following along, then you kind of get it. If you haven't been following along, then this is just a hard session because I'm in the middle of it. And also, much like a few sessions ago, I haven't been in the server code in a while, so I'm rethinking through this as I go through it. Anyway, we're going to link items to items projects. By the way, items_projects because it's alphabetical order. Now, some people will argue against that because it doesn't read as well as a human, and I think both positions are defensible in certain cases. Practicality beats purity, after all. Now, what was I going to look at specifically? We've got item FK. I called these things FKs rather than ID. We'll see if I regret that or not. And I think I called it UUID rather than ID, which I probably should have just called it ID. But, you know, mistakes are for making. All right, so we want to join on, and I got to go look at the connects documentation because I know how to write this in SQL, but whenever you add a layer between it, SQL gets harder to do. ORMs are just too hard for me, and I find that they're hard for, it seems to be they're hard for most people that understand databases. And I think they're hard for people that don't understand databases, but they don't know that it's hard because they haven't experienced the alternative. But that's, again, up for debate. So I think this is items.uuid. I'm going to go check the connects documentation real quick. I thought I still had that up here. I probably do in some other tab somewhere. Okay. So what was it? Join is what we're looking at. And I think we do want a normal join, although I should probably specify what type of join this is. Is it an inner join? I think that that's the more appropriate name. Specify join between tables with the first argument being the join table, the next 3 arguments being the join column, the join operator. Oh, so we do it like this. Got it. That seems kind of odd. Is there another join operator than equals? I am not aware of one off the top of my head. Oh, this is interesting syntax to do it this way. I suppose that works. Maybe I'll use that syntax instead. I kind of like it better. Oh, wait. Oh. No. Okay, so if there's multiple ways to do it, and this way works more often for more situations, I'm just going to do it this way every time because I don't want my brain to have multiple ways of doing something. And then inner join. I don't specifically remember the difference between a join and an inner join. I'm going to check that out right now. I think they're synonyms. Connects join versus inner join. but I need to double check on that. Left join and right join are actually different. I think left join is, no. Left inner join, I think left inner join is the normal join. Okay, let's just do join versus inner join. Natural join. It's one of those things that's so easy to forget. Or maybe, I mean, if I was doing databases every day, it probably would not be so easy to forget. Natural joins the two tables based on the same attribute and data types. The resulting table will contain all the attributes of both the tables, but only keep one copy of each column. Let me see if I got that right. Okay. Oh, I can't make it smaller. Oh, there we go. Those pictures are way too big. The pictures don't change size, or they kind of do. Inner join joins two tables on the basis which is explicit on clause. The resulting table will contain all the attributes from both tables, including the common column also. So let me see, what was the difference? Example, select natural join. What? Same attribute name and data types. Okay, I don't know. I don't understand what it's saying there. Oh, okay. So I think that's, I don't think that is what we think it is. I think the inner join is the normal join. So what they say? Works. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So it takes the foreign key and the primary key and groups them together where they're the same, rather than putting them together. Okay. So I think the normal join that most things do, and I'm going to go look at the Postgres documentation because it's actually going to be more clear on this, I bet. Postgres left inner join. Where's the actual Postgres documentation? Joins between tables. There we go. And can we get the most up-to-date documentation? Current? I don't think anything's changed in the last 10 years on how join works, but there might be subtle differences in date or something like that. That was not... Inner join. Where's the railroad diagram? Let me, you know what, we're going to go SQLite. SQLite has the best explanations. No, take me to the real SQLite documentation. There we go. SQLite has these railroad diagrams where it shows you every way that something can be done. And so let's see. Table or subquery, join operator. Let's look up join operator. There we go. Natural, left, or inner, or cross. So what's the difference between left and inner? I think inner is what we want. But you can not specify anything. And I think the default join, if you specify nothing, is an inner join. Or maybe it's a natural join. I don't know. At this point, I'm about to give up and just go back to it. But I know in the actual Postgres documentation, somewhere it shows exactly what I want. I just don't know where it is. And people who are good at marketing are better at getting SEO than people who are good at documentation. Yeah, more or less, sometimes. So Postgres, what should this be? Let me try a search for this join inner. Tutorials point, 9 gurus. No, I want the real documentation because it actually is quite useful. Maybe it's just Brave failing me. Let me try Google. Although Google keeps changing their search algorithm. It gets annoying. It's getting harder and harder to find things. But in this case, it brought up the right thing. Joins, maybe. Current version. Joins between tables. But it's not saying anything about inner. Okay, inner. No. Outer. Right outer joins and full outer joins. Do we have anything about natural? No. What is the default? Okay. What is the default join type in Postgres? I mean, it doesn't matter that much because I could just do join and it's going to work. But I'm interested in getting and actually solidifying, crystallizing in my mind. Because I've got the left and right. I understand the difference between left outer join and right outer join. That makes sense to me now. It's basically you're allowing empty things on the left or you're allowing empty things on the right. So everything that has a match is returned, but things that don't have a match are also returned. But then I'm not clear on the difference between join and inner join because a lot of times when you see it, it has the optional brackets to let you know that it's the same whether you specify it or not. Inner join is the default join. There we go. Okay, so I want to be explicit because I don't want there to be any guessing about this for myself in the future. So we have here inner join, right? Yes. And it's kind of weird because I could have sworn I saw inner join is just an alias for, or left join is just an alias for. But I think a left inner join is the same thing as an inner join as well. Notice there is no left inner join. There's a left outer join, but not a left inner join. And there's a right join and a right outer join and a full outer join and a cross join and all that. But I'm not, this is, okay, I'm just going to learn a little bit. SQL, right inner versus left inner join. It's probably, and maybe left is synonymous with left outer. SQL inner join. We're finding the intersection. Got it. Left join. Link tables together, but the result is different from the inner join. Look at the example of the left join. Okay, let's go back up to A and B are going to give us 3 and 4. It's going to give us only the intersection. It's going to give us the things on the left and on the inside. But how is that different from a left outer join then? Because this to me, it looks like what I think of as a left outer join and a right outer join. And this is a full outer join, but not a cross join. So it produces at least, it produces all the data, but it doesn't multiply the data, whereas a cross join multiplies the data. So I think left join is synonymous with left outer join, if I'm not mistaken. So what's outer? Full outer join and outer join in SQL are the same. Okay. I'm going to put this in my notes to myself. Where's my SQL? Oh, that's the only one I've got in here. Let's open up another one. Actually, I'll refresh this first in case I got stuff changing in another tab. So, SQL join nonsense. I'll change the name of this before I publish it. But we've got inner join is the same as join. Natural join is dumb. Implicit assumption of how to join based on common column name and type pairings. Inner join is the same as join. Left join is the same as left outer join. Right join is the same as right outer join. And full outer join is the same as outer join. The normal join. The intersection of matching tables. All of the left table plus the intersection plus the right table where there's an intersection. And then this is the same thing. So let's say not plus, but paired with. And then cross join is don't do this. Multiply tables to produce all permutations. Permutations. There we go. All of the left table and the right table, but paired where possible. Okay, that's good enough explanation for me to remember this for myself for hopefully the rest of time so that I don't keep thinking, what does this mean? I think that's true. If this is not true, please let me know. If somebody else wants to look that up and try to make more sense out of it, would be appreciated. Yeah, so I just don't know why we don't just use the full, it's a left outer join, it's a right outer join, it's a full outer join, it's a cross join, it's a natural join, it's an inner join. I don't know why we'd ever allow you to omit the type of join that it is. If it can be called by two names, use the one that's most complete. Or don't have two names. Just call it left join or right join. SQL is one of those things, driven by committee. What do you do? Anyway, so we're not going to do on here. Instead, and I actually would prefer, this is good. But I am really curious, what other operator could there be for a join? Maybe is? Because you could join where is, no, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you do that. Okay. So we want to get the UUID, and then we need our where. And our where is going to be really simple. It's going to be where items projects.uuid is equal, oh wait, and the where we can do it this way too. I think this is generally the better way to do it, except for where there needs to be something other than equals. So we do user ID. If I'm not mistaken, that is the way to do it. Okay. And I do want, I think the rejection logic should not go, should it go here? Maybe it should go here. Yeah, it should go here because the business logic is going to be basically, if you have a paid account, and I'm going to make this $5 or $10 a year, but if you have a paid account, then you're going to have some certain amount of storage. Let's say, I don't know, 100 megabytes would be essentially infinite. But I don't. A document can reasonably could not be over a megabyte. That would be insane for what this is intended for is for blog post documents. You could have a blog post document that maybe reaches 64 kilobytes. That's on the upper bound. That's a very long tutorial that probably could serve people better if it were split into multiple parts, but that's right on the edge. You go above 64 kilobytes to 100 kilobytes, maybe if you're embedding some images in the HTML rather than linking them, that could certainly happen. But you get to a megabyte and it's just, you're out. So I do want to check the size of things, and maybe I will institute that now. But in the first place, we're going to have here, we call it items because it is an array, but we only want the first one. So what I know we want to do, and maybe this whole thing should just be an upsert. We create if there's no ID given. Otherwise, we update. I don't know. In any case, since we are going to allow updates, we need an updatedat. And also, anytime that you would use a Boolean, strongly consider whether or not it should be a date instead. For example, verified should be verified at. Should never be verified. Should always be verified at. Because verifications, if it's been 10 years since you've verified your driver's license, that's no longer valid. Same with a passport. And probably the same with an email address. Well, for sensitive operations, not for something like social media, but if it was any sort of important process. But you can also do verifications of email through other actions. For example, if you send the user an email every once in a while with some useful content about their account and they click it, then you could actually update the verified at date of the email and know, relatively well that somebody's recently verified their email address. Anyway, of course, you got to be concerned about possible forwarding, but people don't usually forward emails unless they're cat videos. So what do we need here? So if not item times items 0, then we're going to throw an error. Let's see, where am I throwing other stuff? Yeah, and I need to use actual errors, but I'm just going to go with this for now. I'll swap these out later. I think I have an errors package already in here that has a listing of the errors but I'll go through and replace it later. It's not a big deal. So this is essentially the user's own project is similar. This is just shortcutting having a items users table. We only have an items projects table, and we give the user's own project the same ID as the user. So we're multiplexing in a way, and we're providing an escape hatch. The items projects table can be used as an items users table, but all of the associations between an item go into the same place. That's the potential benefit. And we'll see. As I go further, I might decide, oh, that was dumb. I shouldn't have done it that way. But by the way, any questions or thoughts on this? Gotta stay hydrated, y'all. Helps you stay awake too. And if you hydrate while you code, then you have to go pee. And that provides good break opportunities. I don't know how sometimes I go 4 hours on a stream without having to do that, but I guess it's because I'm not drinking very much. You ask a doctor, are you dehydrated? Well, how do you know? Well, if you're not going pee every 20 minutes, you're dehydrated. Are you constipated? How do you know? Well, if you're not pooping liquid, then you're constipated. Doctors. But if you know what I'm talking about, if you know what I'm talking about. they always want to blame everything on not drinking enough or not having enough fiber, and their requirements are essentially insane because no person should be peeing every 20 minutes. And if you're peeing white, then you are peeing every 20 minutes. It's the only way that happens. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Okay, so I exited out of that because stupid, not because of good reasons. Because I think it's because I was going to go take a look at the database. But yeah, I guess I don't really care much about the item. And we're just going to put in, do I have a date in here anywhere? Yeah, new date. Last updated at. No, that's not what I want to do. Wait. Yes, it is. Last updated at. Last updated at. And do we just pass this in? So. What? Hold on. User.items? What? Items? Oh. So this should probably be a dot list. Huh. Or a dot all. This is my little mini test here. User.items. Let's see if I'm using that elsewhere. Nope, okay, just there. But I'm probably also using it in the router, so let me go fix the router as well. It's going to be app.js. Try to keep all my routes in app.js. Yes, so let's call that .list. And then we're good. Okay, going back and constructing the query to do the update, which is probably going to be similar to the insert. I think, let me go check. I don't do updates very often in general because of the reasons I explained earlier. Yeah, okay, this is what I thought the syntax would be. Although this is a little bit interesting way of doing it. Where this update, I guess that I think they're trying to produce what reads better. Huh. Decrement? Clear counters. What? Oh. I don't quite understand that. But now I'm interested. Decrement? Huh. Yeah, you should never do this. If you have a balance, again, this is a perfect intuitive use case of event-driven architecture. You don't update somebody's balance. You write to a log what the change in balance is. A bank, for example, would do this. The only time that you would change a balance is if you're doing something, again, similar to what banks do, where you have current balance is a snapshot of, say, everything calculated from yesterday. And then you have pending charges that are only going to be accumulated into the balance once the nightly recalculation task runs. And there's good efficiency reasons for doing that because you don't want to sum everything in all of time and history for all transactions that have happened. You want to have a crystallized value that represents the current state of the world. So that makes sense. So I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know if maybe some databases, maybe Postgres supports a transactional increment or decrement where they can guarantee that set. No, look at this. Oh, okay. No, that does kind of make sense. I get that. No, I get that. Because if this were to run twice, almost simultaneously, it should produce the correct result. Learn something new. So this is a pattern that does make sense if there was a use case where decrement didn't make sense to have that value be kept in a log, or if you wanted to try to keep the running total and have a reasonable belief that it's accurate. But again, this would not sync across systems because you can sync operations only through an event log. You couldn't have two databases communicate with each other and then produce the correct results if they had independently each had the balance adjusted. Anyway, where am I at here? I'm at users.items, no, user.items dot update or patch, or what did I just say? Merge? Called it merge? Okay. So now we're going to need to do connects, and we're going to go to the items table, and we're going to say dot update. This is kind of weird. Can I do it without that update? Because it seems like it should. That's just kind of hokey. Whatever. And then maybe I could be convinced that putting the where first, even though that's not the way the SQL reads, maybe that, I don't know. I kind of prefer to have the parity with the SQL. Anyway, we're going to update items dot, what was it, data, I think? Data. This is an object, isn't it? Update. Oops. Okay. So we're going to update items.data is, oh, I guess I could just put data here. Is item.data and this would again be where we put the AES CBC or whatever. And we're going to update updated at, and then what was that? Last updated at items dot list. We're putting in last updated at. So this is a date object. I'm assuming it just knows how to handle date objects and does the right thing for the right column type or something. So this should be new date if I'm not mistaken. And then dot where would be UUID. And one of the nice things about connects is that if for some reason your variable is undefined, it will not do the stupid thing and execute the query. It will do the smart thing and return an error that you have something that is undefined. And I appreciate that. Items 0.UUID. I think that's right. Obviously it's not because there's a bunch of red arrows. And red arrows mean you did something that wasn't right. It just wasn't right. Ah, there it is. All right, to do update encryption algorithm details. All right. I think that's in a good place. So we're going to select to see if the user is related to one of this item's projects. And if the user is related to one of this item's projects, we're going to update. I think that's right. And we need to be doing some awaits here. Did I put my await there? Yes, I did. Good. And I guess we'll know if that had an error. I don't know what to return. Well, I guess I should return. Let's go ahead and do this. Let item equal items 0. Then we can do item.uuid. And I guess we can do updated at item dot. And so back to the idea of the wild, wild west and no continuity in JavaScript. Databases typically have underscores for their key names. And when we transmit things in JSON, we typically use underscores. And so when I'm working with data that's going to be serialized either to a database or on the wire, I typically name the variable or the property with an underscore. Because I use camel case elsewhere, but I would prefer to use snake case everywhere. Snake case is the superior casing system. It's kind of confusing to me that Go chose to do title case, because that just seems less logical. I don't remember if they had a particular reason for it, because I think snake case with underscores for privates makes sense, and snake case without prefixed underscores. So, sorry, prefixing with an underscore makes sense for privates, and not having a prefix, an underscore prefix in snake case makes sense for publics. And I really don't know why Go didn't go that route. It seems that it would have been better in pretty much every possible way. It'd be easier to write and read the code. It would be more consistent. That's one of the things that I would change about Go if I could change something about Go. Though there are definitely things higher on the list. The number one being the use of empty interface in the standard library. That should have not happened. That was unfortunate. And let's just return the UUID for good measure. And I think I'd also like to return in here stats, to do stats such as documents, free documents remaining, or number of documents and or storage remaining in tier. That might be good. Although that might also be difficult to calculate. Might be one of those places where I'd use decrement and then just calculate it at the end of the day or something. Item has already been declared. Where has item already been declared? So let's call this instead, let's call this update. And let's call this original. I think that's appropriate. Update, original. Maybe old. Original. And also I should do, I think I've seen Joy used in more than one place for doing input validations at the route level. I think that's pretty decent. Because I would, if they put some attributes or properties that I can't store and they're not prefixed with underscores, I would say we want to return an error on that probably. All right, what is this complaining about? Item is not defined, but item is not here anymore. Now it's original. Give it the program linter. You stuck behind the times. Okay. Let's move back to our app. And then we'll call this items.merge. And oh, and the other thing that I have to check for here, well, we can't revoke a project. The user's own project is non-revocable, because I would say I have to check permissions on the project. But in the case of the user's own project is non-revocable. The user will always have the project that describes their account or them as a user. That they are an owner, I guess I would say. Alrighty. So I think I'm just going to test this out and then call it good for the night. Go get some sleep. I've got to be up at 9 tomorrow, which is, that's more than 8 hours away. That could be really great for me. Okay, so first let me see, can I test this? Should I just go straight to the whatchamajig? How should I handle this? Sure you want to permanently delete this draft? No, that's not where I want to be. I think I want to be in this. Things are starting to get spaghetti. I'm going to have to refactor this pretty soon. I'm starting to put things in the wrong files. Can't update items yet. Okay. So I'm going to start out with winner wins, meaning last update wins. I'm trying to think about the scenarios where this could go wrong. I'm on one computer, I edit something, I go over to the other computer, I edit that thing. I'm able to sync. How can I get the computers out of sync so that I've used both computers and they both are updated? This is why there does need to be some sort of versioning strategy, but I think it ought to happen local. I think there ought to be a C versions button, and it ought to show you this is the last revision and this is the current revision. Alright, so we can't update items yet, but now we can. Save hook. Really, more than a save hook, I want it to be a sync hook. I think that's a fair way to put it. Let's rename this. Because I don't want on every save this to update the server, because that could be every keystroke. In fact, right now, I think it is every keystroke, which is fine when you're talking about a document that is only tens of kilobytes. But there's going to be layers to this. There's going to be debouncing, and I think I'm going to want a manual sync where you push the button to sync. Okay, can't update items yet. So this is where we post. So basically I'm just going to copy this. I don't know if die should be there, but I also don't know what else should be there. Oh, what was this for? Token. Huh. That seems like that's leftover code from something or other. Let's take a look at that one more time. So if there's not either type of token, but where did we define the two types of the token? Let's go to token here. This one right here. So I guess if there's not a token, but there's going to be a token because this is the result area. So if we've gotten this far, we've already assured that there's a token of some type, I think. Yeah, this is getting nasty. This is getting really spaghetti at this point. Might need to take a step back in the next episode and just think through the problems that I now understand that I didn't understand when I started, and clean up a little bit. In any case, I think we can move this up here. Okay. And then we're going to replace all of the dummy with user and what do you call it? Doc. User doc. Because it was boilerplate for dummy data of any kind. And now we're getting a little bit more specific about what kind of data it is. And the reason I'm checking the type on here is we're going to have more than one type of data to store. We're going to have post, and we're going to have blog as well, which is going to be, and a post is going to be associated with a blog, which blog will probably become at the level of project. And then we could share a blog with another person. And so I could sync all of my stuff and all of my stuff from another blog. But then you got to deal with the encryption. And then that gets complicated when you're trying to share encryption keys between people. Client-side encryption and shared groups. Potentially challenging problem. I would love to hear some thoughts on what's a good direction to go with that, because that's not a problem that I've played with before. Okay, so if this is not of this type, then do we want to return? I think we do. I think in both cases we want to return it. Now we want to update the item. And this should get pulled out into its own function at this point. Okay, and then what are we going to do here? We're going to put in the post dot UUID. So how are we handling the UUID of the items? Let me go back to where, there we get some items. item.data. What are we doing with the UUID on that? Sync ID. Oh, okay, right. That's the sync ID. That makes sense. Duh. Okay. So then this is going to be post.sync ID. And I think I updated the other code to allow for that. And I guess, I don't know why I'd done it that way. I guess old habits die hard. I'm trying to use backticks for string concatenation and keeping that simple so it reads easy and there's no operations in it. I don't think, especially because of how, I don't know what the word is. To say it's poorly implemented is maybe not right because it's not meant. They're too much and too little. That's what I would say. JavaScript template strings are too much and too little. They allow too much complex behavior inside of them in terms of evaluating expressions, but then they're not enough in that they can't actually work as templates. You can't assign the scope elsewhere. And if you're going to introduce template strings, you ought to introduce template strings, not half template strings that only kind of sort of work in a particular circumstance and have, I guess the reason they did it this way is it's difficult to have, you don't want to have unchecked evaluations in strings that could be user supplied or run in a function that's user supplied or something of that nature. I think that's why they did it this way, which I guess is all right, but then why introduce another syntax? Sprintf, that's what sprintf is for. And that would have made more sense and been more just appropriate for the language. I don't understand the obsession with breaking changes. I don't understand why that is something that so many of these people want as an outcome. That seems rather odd to me. Okay, so if something fails here, it's just going to die. All right. Well, let's see what happens. I imagine that if we go to my beta thing here, and if we refresh, instead of getting can't update items yet, I imagine what we'll get is some sort of error. Let's see. And yes, this is too complex, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to call it sync create. Well, I don't want to attach it there. Async function doc create and doc merge, doc update. Yeah, this feels like it should just be an upsert at this point, because this is so similar and there's not a lot of value that's different here, and the things that are going to be replaced might be the encryption algorithm. Whatever. Let's continue the course. Doc update is going to be post, right? And we're going to await that. So we're doing a doc update, and we're going to take in post. Okay. And then we'll just put the dot die right here. And then same thing, we'll do doc create. Await doc create post. Okay. And then where is that going? So once we call the sync hook, it seems that perhaps it should return the post. And then perhaps we should save it again. So we should post model dot save probably. And the reason for that being that it did not have a sync ID property and now it does. And so we want to save the sync ID property that it has. And we can't necessarily update the updated at, the last updated at. And the reason for that being that the last updated at, how to say this? If I update a document, in the single user case, that probably would be fine. In almost every case. There's just a small edge case where if you updated at from when you update something. Well, no, because you could have updated something 20 minutes. It could be on this computer, and I could update something 20 minutes from now. I think what maybe should happen in that case is maybe whenever I go to update something, maybe I should fetch first. That I think would be acceptable. But we have no way of enforcing that. But what we could also do is return an error if the thing that is remote has been updated since the last update, but we wouldn't necessarily know unless we included that. And I do want the winner win strategy, so I could do that. Could say the way that it'll version is it'll try to update. If it fails, it'll pull the latest updates. And then save that as a conflict version or something. I don't know. I have to think about it more. And I have to get there first. Right now, I just need the sync hook implemented at all. So if I think I want to do this a different way. If not post.syncID, post._type equals post. If post not equals post.type return. If post.syncID. Well, what can we say? Let me think, what can we say about this? I'm overthinking it. Or maybe I'm not. Okay, actually that turned out quite well. So the one thing this might come back with let's see, where's sync hook get executed? Sync hook Or is there anywhere else it gets executed? No, just here. Update all existing posts. Okay, so if there's not a sync ID, then it won't have been tagged with a type. So we'll tag it with the type. Then we're going to create it, and then we're going to give it the sync ID of whatever it was created as. So let's say let's just do post equals like this, maybe. I don't know if that's the way I want to do it or not. Since I don't know, refuse the temptation to guess. We'll go with response. And we will go with resp.uuid is this. So we'll do it that way. Now, this is something I'm a little bit confused about. How would it not be of type post? I do need to double check on that. Post._type. Okay, so if the item has a type and the type isn't post, we can't handle it. Because the docs could be anything. That's why. That's why I put the type on the docs. Because to the service, in a similar vein of Google Docs, you could have a spreadsheet, you could have a document, you could have a presentation. There could be different types of documents. There could be a blog article. There could be a page. There could be something else. But the remote, because it's encrypted data, doesn't know what type it is and doesn't care. It's just going to give all the updates. And so it needs to sort the updates and say, when it gets the data and decrypts it, it needs to say, oh, this update is a post type versus a page type or whatever, or a comment type. We could even, that'd be interesting. Build out comments with this. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot, actually. I like it a lot. Okay. Anyway, let me get back to what I was doing. So we're going to do doc create needs to hand back a response, which is a JSONified response. And then we need to do the same thing with the doc update. Okay, I think this is fine. I don't think I need to catch a die there because it'll catch die elsewhere. Okay, same thing here. We can say response is equal to this. And what would we say? Nothing. We'd say nothing. It's going to come back with the updated at. Let me think about this. To do update last updated at. And then we don't need to worry about the sync ID because that's already there, so we just need to return post as it was sent. Because we don't believe that it's going to be, well, the data is encrypted, so it can't be modified by the server. The only thing that it could give back is the sync ID or something else, which I kind of now want to call it sync FK. I'm going to have to get my nomenclature straight I'm making some bad moves here. By the way, I see there's a couple people that are still tuned in. Just feel free to say hello again. Or if there's anything that you've liked about the stream or had some thoughts or ideas on, would be enjoyable to hear them. All right. Okay, do I need to catch this? What happens if I catch here? Because it can do I want, what is die? Die is rethrow the error, but really, we don't need to die. I guess we don't need to rethrow the error because we could keep going. There could be an error with one. That doesn't mean there's an error with all. But that's okay. All right, so now I don't think I need this one. Sync hook is only going to get called for existing model IDs. So I think it might be fair to just set the post type no matter what is happening. Because really, the post type doesn't need to get stored locally because we know it's a post by virtue of being a post. It only needs to get stored remotely because the data gets encrypted. And when it comes back, we'd have to duck type it. And so giving it an underscore property type that is post is an effective way of duck typing. If it types like a post, it's a post. Okay. Now I think I'm ready to try this out. Let's see. Internal server error. Excellent. That's what I was hoping for. The truth. Don't sugarcoat it. Not implemented. Oh. Is that about the refresh token? Yeah, that's about the refresh token. What about... Oh, I'm going to have to sign in. That's why. Okay. So let's sign in. I need to implement the refresh token. Oops. There was an unexpected error. It's not your fault. Are we sure? Let's see what it says. Well, that looks fine. Okay, what is this complaining about then? Token is not defined where? Line 26? No. But from where? From line 390? Because token is defined here. Got it. Okay, I'm down. I'm kind of surprised the linter didn't catch that. I'm going to chalk that up to a linter fail. All right, on we go. I'll do a little refresh, do a little GitHub sign in. Good, we got another error. Let's see what this one's about. 404. Post API user. Oh, because I think I said I was doing that as a patch, not a post. Doc create. And then doc patch. Cool. So we'll refresh again, and then I think I'll whip it and call it a night. Ooh, nice. Oh, that's strange. Something seems to have gone wrong. Let's take a look at this. I think I was returning maybe the user UUID on the server side rather than returning the doc UUID. Let's see. Updated items merge. Let's go check it out. Merge. Update. Original. Select items.uuid. Oh, whoops. Well, let's hope that I think all my items are about to get deleted. So what I forgot to do is getting the first item by that user. I forgot to do items.uuid is item ID. So that probably screwed things up just a little bit. I think when I refresh, what we might end up with is all of these get replaced with the same item because they were just all updated with the same item. So let's do the login again and see how that goes. Oh, we got some 500s here. Interesting, but not on all of them. Very, very interesting. Because what I would have expected is that we'd get an all or nothing. Either it works or it doesn't work. Oh yes, I do want to become famous. Thank you, Zriley Mia. Yes, I do. I want the big follows. That's my favorite comment. I need to figure out how to get Twitch to hold things that it should know are spam. The phrase "wanna become famous by followers." They should know. They should know. Let's see what happens if I say yes. Tell me more. I must know. Also, I'm interested to see, does this pop up in the chat? Okay. No, good. So I've got Twitch connected to a couple of channels right now, and it should only relay comments for those channels when I'm streaming those channels. But the other day, it was doing both. It was crossing the streams. It was posting between dissimilar channels. Anyway, I want to get to bed. I now have 8 hours until I need to get up at 9. Okay, this one did not fail. But this one did fail. And this one failed, and this one failed. And they look similar. Okay, but what do we see? Returning undefined, not found. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I think what I'd have to do to fix this is, first of all, let me just see what happens if I refresh. Did everything get overwritten? No, it didn't. Okay, good. So local storage, this is one of those snippets that I need to put in my JavaScript cheat sheet, is iterating over local storage, because it's not what you think. So for, and we're going to use, I guess we can use let here. That'll work appropriately. I equals local storage dot length. I equals 0. I less than. I plus equals 1. Let key equals, and local storage dot get key, or no, get item by the key. And then we have to try to parse that. And then catch, if we catch it, then we just continue. And this is going to be val. Yeah, I'm just going to create some extras, I guess. No, those should exist though, shouldn't they? Let me check and see what the actual query ends up being. Select items from items, inner join items projects on items.uuid equals items.projects.itemfk. That makes sense. Where items.projects.projectfk is the user ID. Let me make sure that that's in the right order. And items projects.revoked.at is null. And updat, wait. Okay, so that's getting things. I'm a little confused here. This is where I see the not found error. Oh, okay, something went wrong here. Maybe? No, that's a string. And then we've got time, and then we've got... Okay, the first one, if this is correct, is going to be the user ID, right? All right. From items, inner join items on projects, items FK. And then the bindings are the user ID. Oh, items projects project UUID. Project FK, I think is what it should be. Because this is going to have its own unique bit. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, I see what I did. I see what I did there. Rookie mistake. Come on. One of y'all should have been able to tell me. Aren't you looking over my shoulder at all? Aren't you looking out for me? Okay, project FK. And I think I'm just going to do this for documentation purposes and clarity. And then make sure we put project FK. Okay, cool. So this items merge will work. Okay. Now this may just start working when I refresh and I hit the login button. Cool. So it had nothing come down. It only sent things up. And then if we refresh, and let me just clear all this out, sign in again. Then what do we have come down? The new things that were just updated. Okay. And we won't know if it's the same or not because every time we encrypt them, they're going to be different anyway. All right, so in the next bit, what I'll need to do is maybe have a way to not update things that don't change. Let me just put that in my to-do here. Do I have a to-do here? Yeah. Ability to show encryption key. We've got that. Update items. We've got that. Mark items is deleted. We don't really have that, but we do need that. Count bytes, paywall. Another thing we need is to not update items that haven't been updated. Okay, so there's our to-do. And then let me go. Do I have my JavaScript cheat sheet? I'm just going to put this here. I really just want this thing to be my whole blog. That'll get there. Eventually I'll integrate Desi into it. But I think I'm going to move on to working on telebits. Once I get payments integrated into this, I think that I'm going to move on to integrating payments into telebit. Take a break from this for a bit. Okay, well, thanks for joining in. Thanks for those of you that had a little bit of conversation with me. And if you liked it, go ahead and give it a like, because if you like what you like, you get more of what you like. Otherwise, thumbs down, because every thumb helps. And if you want to subscribe, just make sure to hit the bell for personalized recommendations so that you get the code stuff and stuff that's interesting to you, unless you really just want to follow everything, because sometimes I do game stuff and electronics and all that as well. All that meaning anything that I'm interested in. But it's about 95% code. So with that all out of the way, you all have a wonderful night, and I'll catch you later. Adios. Oh, the mouse is not on this screen. It's on that screen. Ha! See, you thought I was gone, and I thought I was gone, but I'm still here. Because what I'm actually doing is doing my whip commit. And I thought, well, since I'm sitting here and I didn't actually hit the end stream button yet, then I'll just do my little diff and do my little whip commit. I don't think I have any debugs. I might have added some to-dos. Okay. Now I'm off to see the wizard. The wonderful wizard of sand in your eyes. This is the real adios.